hindsight is 2020. In 2025, former Vice President Kamala Harris is not holding back in her new memoir. In a first excerpt published in The Atlantic, Harris opens up saying she was in the worst position to tell President Biden not to run for re-election because it could make her look bad. Then she said this: "It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness."
Now, Axios is reporting there's been mixed reaction from Biden aides on those comments. Some showing outrage, saying Harris is the reason she lost the election, not Biden. Others showing appreciation of her speaking out, agreeing the Bidens should never have run in the first place, or they shouldn't have agreed and then allowed Joe Biden to run if that was the case. Now, Harris does go on to defend Biden's mental capabilities. She calls Biden a, quote, smart guy, and, quote, on his worst day, he was more deeply knowledgeable, more capable of exercising judgment, and far more compassionate than Donald Trump on his best. But at 81, Joe got tired. That's when his age showed in physical and verbal stumbles. Harris is gearing up for a 15-city book tour later this month.
And much later, she's gearing up for a run for the presidency, is what I
assume,
based on this. This excerpt left much to be desired, in my opinion. It was unfortunately, very just characteristic of Kamala Harris in general. It was very boring. It was kind of wishy-washy. It was not strongly anti-Biden in that her commentary, as we just said there, this was not particularly harsh. Biden is not a popular figure. Democrats should be throwing him under the bus, and many are. She's still not doing that. She also doesn't just full-throatedly defend the decision for him to run re-election. She's, again, it's so characteristic of her. She's trying to have it both ways. She's trying not to offend anyone. Biden's aides are, some of them, offended. Who cares? These people are liars. They covered up that the president was incapable of being the president. They were trying to drag his body over the finish line. Like, these people are utterly discredited. No one wants to hear from them again. That Kamala Harris is still kind of afraid to offend them is, I think, reflects poor political judgment that she has demonstrated all along. So I was underwhelmed.
I'm actually going to have a hot take. I'm extremely annoyed with this, for a totally different reason than you, because we are in like the fifth quarter. You should have said all this stuff back in the day when people were running and saying, what do you want to do? How do you want to separate yourself from President Biden on the campaign trail? His terrible economy, his terrible policies on immigration. You just sat there and just like didn't say anything, said, oh, his policies, you stand by them. You and Tim Walz went on the campaign trail, said nothing different from Biden, and then lost the election. And now you have all these things to say that I'm assuming in the book about the different policies you would have put forward, how you would have changed. It's just like way too little too late. And then this feels like a pile on because, like I said to you, Joe Biden has cancer now. He stepped out of office. You got Karine Jean-Pierre writing a book and switching parties. You got Jake Tapper, who was all about Biden, writing a book and just saying that he's, incompetent. You got Trump doing what Trump does all the time and piling on. Like, what? This is a little bit insane to me that it's like people are picking the easiest target and the weakest target, as opposed to the moment where the Democratic Party decided to shove Joe Biden down people's throats and make him the candidate, as opposed to Bernie Sanders or somebody that was much more widely popular.
Someone youthful and vigorous.
But even if it wasn't Bernie Sanders, it wasn't Biden, right? We all knew that, but it still was the fact that people thought, okay, better than Trump, but they tried to do that same thing twice. And the fact that you allowed Jill Biden, who has no actual political standing, to be that vocal in the process, and no Democrat said anything, even if it didn't want to be Kamala because it looks self-serving, to me, this is ridiculous. And I'm just like so annoyed that now everybody's so retrospective and can figure out what went wrong when people were calling Trump all these dramatic names like dictator, and like even today, the protesters calling him Hitler. It's like, so if the Democratic Party has called these things like modern day Gestapo and still saying these things. I mean, we do segments in the last 2 months on some of these things. Then how was the plan to do nothing and say something afterwards to write a book to make money?
Well, that's what they always do. You save your best material for the book.
And the trust is missing, too. Like, we talk about that. The trust in the Democratic Party is missing. And so how is this going to help with trust?
The low position the Democratic Party in is due entirely to it's of Joe Biden's making. That's why I don't feel like it's unfair to pile on him. You're right. I also don't enjoy really sticking it to an old man who has cancer, but he chose this when he decided to run for re-election. He should have been talked out of that by Jill Biden, by Hunter, by his aides and associates, this people he's surrounded with, but they were sycophants. They were, Grima Wormtongue whispering in his ear.
Yes,
they should have said, you cannot do this for another 4 years. he couldn't even do it for the rest of that time, but certainly not for another 4 years. Everything that has gone wrong for the Democratic Party is downstream of that uniquely bad decision to run for re-election. When he said from the outset that he was going to be a transformational figure, he was going to allow for a transformation to take place, transitional figure, in the Democratic Party make the way for new leadership, and then he just totally reneged on that.
And he would have totally been looked at as this almost like icon-like figure because he moved out of the way to create a space and built up a newer, fresher voice. Even if that was Kamala, there were opportunities to build her up during your presidency to make it so that she's a viable candidate. But what happened was what she's alleging in her book is that they constantly stifled any good news reports about her and didn't elevate anything that came out that was actually worth talking about, like things that she was doing overseas besides making gaffes or fumbling on words. Like they just allowed those news stories to run and didn't correct it with right information because she was outshining.
And that is so, it's so whiny. This excerpt is whiny. She complains that she doesn't get enough comm support from Biden's team, but she has her own team. It's like,
yeah, but you can't
you gotta stand on your own two legs here.
You can't you know how it goes. It's almost like the royal family in politics, right? Which is why Biden was even the candidate, right? There's an order, and maybe this is just on the Democratic side because I haven't looked into. I think Trump skipped the line, so he broke that kind of that up a little bit. But there are people who are expected to be in succession, and you're supposed to wait your turn. Like it happened with Hillary and Obama. It's like Obama skipped his turn. The Democratic
Party's problem is the wait your turn.
Agreed.
Philosophy. But she never tried to accomplish. She had to do something on her own. Like, you're right. Look at all these Republican conservative figures who just go out and turn themselves into stars if they have talent by just talking to people, by being on podcasts, by introducing themselves. They're not waiting for someone else to say, "Oh, here's a podium. Are you going to? Here's what we want you. Here's what you're supposed to say." They just do it.
Well, I don't think that's how it goes in the presidency.
She's the most scripted and uncomfortable political figure.
For figures. For people who are in the podcast space or voices, that's one thing. But I don't think J.D. Vance is not skipping over Trump in anything that he does. He's out there talking about the big, beautiful bill because I believe he was asked to do that. He's out there being very vocal and sending out his tweets because, they're agreed upon.
But he doesn't need Trump's help to be an effective voice for conservative politics and for the Republican Party.
But if something came down of don't try to, maybe let's just be quiet right now. Mm-hmm. You think Vance is going to be like, nah, I'm still going to go out there.
No, Vance is going to do whatever Trump
exactly.
Does
So that's what I mean. Like I think Kamala's suggesting that
she's mad she didn't get support. They didn't give her opportunities. They didn't. That when she got criticized, that they didn't step in to help her. And like that's the kind of thing that seems just very weak to me, reflective of not a strong political sensibility or comfort being involved in the daily skirmish of politics. I don't think she's cut out for this, but I think she has every intention of running for president again. And
you think in the next election she's going to run again?
Oh, absolutely. And
okay, I thought maybe she would just sit this one out.
Why would she do? Well, this is not what it sounds like to me in the book.
Well, I'm just saying, based on the electoral votes that Biden won, and for me, Biden was largely not somebody who I thought should run again. But the first time you want to understand why, leading into the pandemic,
she had
more than 107 days.
She would have won, even though the polls suggest. I mean, she declined in popularity.
And my only issue with that was that Kamala did put her name in the hat against Joe Biden to be president, and she didn't even rank when it came down to who's going to be the front runner as the candidate. So people have to remember historically, and I'm objectively looking at this, wanting to break the barrier of having a woman president, wanting to break the barrier of having a woman of color be president. These are all things that will happen because Kamala was wholly required to do the job, not because of DEI. I just want to be clear, but I would like to see those things happen because I think that people are wholly acceptable to be a candidate, whether they're of color or not. But I would love to see those barriers be broken because people are inspired by seeing that. But the conversation is not even about that. It's just the principle of you have to also come with a strategy and a plan and a laid out perspective on how you would lead. And whether she was given the opportunity prior or after, she had all the opportunities when she was running against Biden to lay that out. And the American public didn't choose her as a front runner. And so to me, that's concerning to go back into this again when Democrats lost so bad in November.
Well, next up, Elon Musk is not the richest man on earth anymore. We'll tell you more. That's coming up next.